Hey everyone, and welcome to our network. This is the Magical Miracle Network, and I'm very happy today to have with us Margaret Porter-Daniel to talk about A Course in Miracles with all of you. So, Margaret, welcome back to the network.
Hello, how's everybody?
Anyway, grateful to have you here. And today, what we're going to do, we were just talking a little bit before we hit record about devotion, which is a beautiful word. And so I thought we could maybe talk about that word and the passage that you've selected today to talk about, which is chapter 19, the attainment of peace. And that is on page 410 in A Course in Miracles. And we're going to look specifically at the attraction of guilt. So, anyway, Margaret, let's just talk about devotion. Who are we devoted to in this world?
Oh, well, I'm devoted to Swami, to the divine Atma, and which means I'm devoted to myself, and I'm devoted to you and everyone I meet, because you are all expressions of the divine.
And for people who might not know who Swami is, can you just give us a brief little description?
Oh my goodness, there, Sri Satya Sai Baba was he's still operating, just not in form anymore. But he was a great Puma avatar, which means he was able to do all the siddhis, and these are specific skills or gifts that come with divine awareness, with your working with one's divinity within. And he was so realized that he became, just like Yeshua became, one with God. In other words, they were one and the same. And he pretty much said over and over again, I am you, you are me, reminding us over and over again that we are God. Each of us is God. And God is love. And he taught, love all, serve all, help ever, harm never. And you wake up with love in the morning, you do love during the day in whichever way you can, and you go to sleep with love. And love is our compassion, our patience, our empathy, um, our ability to see the goodness in our world around us and to do good. He guided us to do seva, which is to serve, selfless service. So all the devotees of Swami are very active in their communities, helping in some fashion or form.
Well, thank you for that description, because I think it's helpful for people who might not be aware of Satya Sai Baba, because I think he transitioned in 2011.
He did.
And
Mhm.
okay, yeah, and he was an Indian avatar who just an amazing, incredible, just like Jesus, had the same abilities.
Mhm.
And so I think the idea is that we all come in a sense to teach each other that we are love, and um, to make that your devotion in your heart and mind every single day as best you can. I think that's a
Yes,
simple way to say it, is just be devoted to love and the
right.
loving thought system. And in A Course in Miracles, Jesus talks about, yeah, I think, that's the idea of being devoted to love and using the wisdom of love as you work through your day,
Mhm.
and even at night. So thank you for that. So let's just go ahead and we'll just sort of move into chapter 19, the attainment of peace. And we're just going to talk for a few minutes about that and sort of unpack those paragraphs that you were pointing to before we hit record.
Okay. Do you want me to read them?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. The attraction of guilt. 10. The attraction of guilt produces fear of love, for love would never look on guilt at all. It is the nature of love to look upon only the truth, for there it sees itself, with which it would unite in holy union and completion. As love must look past fear, so must fear see love not. For love contains the end of guilt, as surely as fear depends on it. Love is attracted only to love. Overlooking guilt completely, it sees no fear. Being wholly without attack, it could not be afraid. Fear is attracted to what love sees not, and each believes that what the other looks upon does not exist. Fear looks on guilt with just the same devotion that love looks on itself, and each has messengers which it sends forth and which return to it with messages written in the language in which their going forth was asked. Love's messengers, and this is number 11, are gently sent and return with messages of love and gentleness. The messengers of fear are harshly ordered to seek out guilt and cherish every scrap of evil and of sin that they can find, losing none of them on pain of death and laying them respectfully before their Lord and Master. So what is fear's Lord and Master?
Fear.
Fear's Lord and Master is the ego. That's what fuels the ego, is fear.
Absolutely. So what we can do is, if we can just take a moment, talking about separation, talking about guilt, talking about fear, and how that plays out in the world, maybe a simple example that we can share, and then we can move into one of love.
Yeah. Okay, you start.
Okay, well, of course.
You
I
share
think
first.
anytime you're, yeah, all right, I'll start. So anytime we judge, anytime we separate, it's coming from that fearful thought system of the ego. And so the ego is always blocking, it's always projecting, it's always doing all those things, using that as its that thought system. And so we can look at a neighbor, for example. I'm thinking about my neighbor. And so when he brings up, he came up to my fence one day and was not happy with me. And I was like, okay. And so it just happened, something was going with the fence. And so basically he was using his anger and his fear to create a story around the fence. And so what I did was, for a minute, I joined with him in that. I joined with him in that I was defending against his projection. And so that was sort of an example of, I'm guilty. He sees me as the guilty neighbor. I did something wrong with my fence. And so I was like, uh-oh. And then I saw him, in the same way. And so I was really aligning with the teacher of fear, and sending him back that same message. He was sending me a message of, fear, guilt, judgment, and I was sending him back that same message. So in that paragraph you just read, that's what he's talking about, is that our brothers and sisters will send us a message of separation, guilt, fear, and when we join them there and send it back, that's the exchange of that teacher, that thought system. And so I think that's just sort of a simple way maybe to describe it. Do you have a different way?
No, not very, but that was really helpful because it gave me another perspective on it. It made me aware of what it's saying here was that the messengers of fear are harshly ordered to seek out guilt, which your neighbor did, came to seek out guilt in you and cherish every scrap of evil and of sin that they could find. And so they're putting value on the bad, on the offense, so to speak. and cherish every scrap of evil and sin they can find, losing none of them on pain of death, and that they can, and laying them respectfully before their Lord and Master. So he was definitely sharing his guilt and seeking out your guilt to justify his own. So it becomes like this circular
Yeah,
thing. I guess you would call it the worm Ouroboros, where it feeds on itself.
yeah,
You know, the snake's biting its tail,
right,
and
exactly.
it
Yeah, and
just spins.
right, exactly. And we, if you kind of go back to the beginning of all this, that's what what happened when we separated from God, is that we really thought we separated, and we felt terribly guilty about all of that happened there. And then we became very afraid that God was going to do to God what the ego thought it did to God. And that's that bigger part of the loop. And so that's the big loop. And then we have these little mini loops that happen down here on Earth, and you'll see them play out, not only in your own life, but even like on the political screen. I mean, look at the politics. I mean, you see it happen all the time. And
Yeah.
that fuel, the ego teacher, right, definitely feeds itself. And you'll see the news feed is usually guilt, guilt, fear. That's what's breaking news.
Right, right. And well, and it's breaking news because it wants to make money. And so the value of our society is, at this point, is money holds the motive, our raison d'etre, reason to be, for this country. And it's of course destroying us, because none of it's real, and none of it's from love.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, but that whole, and I've had a situation where someone was pretty, um, you know, I guess in my face is probably the best way to put it, about a situation, or accused me of something. And the interesting, oh, I know what it was. I know, I remember. So there was an incident for which I was blamed in my one of my job. And of course, you're dealing with a lot of various issues with students. But anyway, they brought me a subpoena, and this guy was all gruff and ready to say, here, take this, you awful person, and I just kind of, I came down and I said, hi, are you, and I just was so kind to him. He just stopped, and he handed me, it was almost like he was sorry to hand it to me. It was really, the expression on his face was like, this person isn't at all who I was told they were. Not at all.
Right.
And he actually said to me, here, I'm sorry, here. And I looked at him and said, it's okay. Thank you. And I, went on. I knew it was coming, but it was just one of those things where a person has a whole image of who you are. And then all of a sudden, what you really are is love. And when you are that love, their attack just falls apart.
Yeah.
It just crumbles, because there's nothing to attack. How do you attack love?
Yeah, it's true.
It can't be done. It just doesn't exist. I mean, they attacked Yeshua, they attacked Jesus, nailed him to a cross. But it was not an attack, not for Jesus.
Right. Yeah, he had definitely forgiven all of his brothers and sisters at that time, and got to that place where he knew he was in a dream, and he knew he was
Yeah,
playing his part. And we're so grateful that he played his part very well. I think he was the first person to do his part perfectly. in linear time. Of course, in the holographic time, we've all really done it. And I'm just so grateful that he just had, just like Swami, just had that beautiful love. And that's all that he knew he was. And he had mastered the mind at that point. And he had removed all the guilt in his mind. He removed all of the separation in his mind, removed all the fear in his mind. And he knew that death wasn't real, pain wasn't real, guilt
And the
wasn't,
body wasn't real.
body wasn't real.
Yeah, none of it's
Yeah,
real.
love that. So the devotion to love is the teacher of love, which is the Holy Spirit, of course. And so in that passage, he talks about, fear sends out its messengers, with that guy that came with the subpoena, right? And
Right.
my neighbor, for example. And then what love does, love also sends out a message, which is what you just talked about. You expressed your love with that guy bringing you the subpoena. And then the whole case kind of fell apart, which brings me back to, it just popped in my mind. It brings me back to an earlier lesson in the course where he talks about the higher court of the Holy Spirit is going to dismiss every case we brought against ourselves or others. It's just, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it doesn't exist. None of it does.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
absolutely.
I struggle a lot with trying to do the right things for people, like say the right words or whatever. And I just simply had to let it go because I realized, if my heart's in the right place, the words will be right. And I shouldn't think about it. There's no need to think about it.
I love that. Yeah. Just if you're in the right zone, you're attuned and aligned with love, with God,
Mm-hmm.
then the right words, the right thoughts will come first. The right words will just come right, flow right out. And because your heart is open, and then your action will, in this world, will reflect that, reflect
Yeah,
what you're thinking and who you're, the words that you're speaking. And also, on the other hand, it will also reflect the teacher of fear, the ego. If you're joined with that, separated with that, then your words will reflect, the fear, the guilt, the attack, the sickness, the pain. And and that message will come back. And that's what we're trying to break up with. We're really trying to undo the ego in favor
right.
of the Holy Spirit. Yeah.
Well, and that's that projection.
Mhm.
Your mind is creating everything around you. It's made the people, it's made all of that. So what are you holding in your mind? If we are holding fear, blame, and so forth, then that's what we will create in our world is fear and blame. But if we're holding love in our mind and in our hearts, then that will be what we encounter as love.
Yeah, and I think what he talks about in the course to that point is, I just was saying this a little while ago that the bridge of forgiveness, it's all water under the forgiveness bridge. I think I used that saying a little while ago, and that's the one tool that we have that is going to help us go up the ladder
Yeah,
in a sense. And so what we do, and I'll just, with that happened with you with that subpoena and everything, I'm sure you were working the devotion of love and forgiveness with that. And that works. And same with my neighbor, like I just worked the forgiveness and the love and the kindness as best as I could. And later, what happened was about a little while later, I had a really beautiful exchange with him. And I knew that the reason I was having that beautiful exchange was that I had, done the work. The Holy Spirit had done the work between us, among us.
right,
And it brought a beautiful blessing down the road. And so that's what we're doing, right?
right, right.
Yeah. So
And
any
and
little, yeah.
and it's not going to happen unless we work on ourselves and make the effort to do it. We must, that's where the free will. Yes, we are free. We are free to decide how we are going to love another, how we are going to love our world, how we're going to love our minds.
Right.
We're free. That's our choice. And and sometimes you're in such difficult situations where the people you're around are just very closed off and unable to see beyond themselves. They're projecting so much of their anxiety and their fear on you, and you find yourself being blamed for things that aren't there, or you constantly questioning yourself because they're constantly criticizing you. It's just this vicious circle of negativity. And that's a really hard situation, particularly if you're in an employee situation and this person that is very difficult. You can't um, come forward with what you're really feeling, because then you could lose your job. And that's a terrible manipulation and guilt to put anybody in. And so in those situations that seem to be kind of unending, or where's their light for this, that's when we really do the hard work on ourselves. And why am I afraid? Why should I feel guilt? I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing everything that I can. And that's when we learn to breathe. Breathe. Breathe in light, breathe out love, fill your lungs with joy, and begin to not take that person's mindset on, and that always being calm. And it's hard because you may walk out the door and start screaming, but that's okay. Go do the scream. But in the meantime, that's when prayer really helps.
Right.
And recognizing that they are the Christ, pure and innocent, and all is forgiven and released. And I've been in a work situation that was very similar to that, very similar. And that's, I was doing that 24/7. Every time I took a breath, oh, they're the Christ, pure and innocent.
Oh, well, I love that joyful prayer, that devotion right there. That's helpful for people watching this video, is that I think what you just said there, even though the situation was difficult, you stayed devoted to the right teacher, try to stay in that zone, and we kept reminding yourself and everyone around you that there was innocence, right?
Yeah.
We're hooked into the guilt with the ego, but we're unhooked with innocence when we choose it. And that's really a great place to operate from.
Yeah, well, that is the forgiveness too, because you are the Christ, pure and innocent, and all is forgiven.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Margaret. I appreciate the examples you've given us today and the wisdom.
I
Uh,
appreciate yours.
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And also thank you for talking about Satya Sai Baba at the top of the video and his work. And so I love it that you love him and that you are devoted to that beautiful teaching that he brought into our world. And we're also devoted and loving to Yeshua ben Joseph, our elevated brother, bringing in A Course in Miracles to the world as well. All of these things are kind of coming together in this beautiful divine order to help us all wake up from separation and wake up from the guilt, and that the guilt is just a bad story, and we're going to wake up from that and the fear.
Well, it's a bad story that we made.
Right.
And so I invite everyone to make good stories. Make the best story you can, a beautiful story that's love and that's light. We're in a world that is so cynical and jaded, that if you are a positive person and always seeing people have a really hard time with that. Well, too bad.
Yes, I love that. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to end the video. And while I find the stop button, I'll give you the last word or two.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. I'm just going to this last sentence is really good. The
Oh,
fear.
okay. I was getting ready to hit the stop button, but you want to keep going. Okay, go ahead.
Just a second. The
Yeah.
fierce attraction that guilt holds for fear is wholly absent from love's gentle perception. What love would look upon is meaningless to fear and quite invisible. So we have to work on making visible the love.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you so much, PD. I love you.
I
We'll see
love you too.
we'll see you soon.